3 weeks later, the Soul's Pride docked at Titan Station, the largest human research facility in the outer solar system. The station was built inside a huge asteroid that had been hollowed out and turned into a place where humans studied alien technology and conducted dangerous experiments. Do-Yun carried the metal sample personally from the ship to the research labs. He had been watching it during the entire journey home, and the readings kept getting stranger. The metal seemed to react to his presence, becoming slightly warmer when he was near and cooler when he walked away. Dr. Heejin was waiting for them in Lab 7. She was the best metallurgist on Titan Station, maybe the best in all of human space. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and her lab coat was covered with small burn marks from years of working with dangerous materials. "So this is the famous scrap metal that has everyone so excited," she said, looking at the sample Do-Hyun placed on her examination table. "The Veilthons and Crixions both told us to leave it alone," Do-Hyun explained. "That just made us more curious." Heejin smiled. "Good. I hate it when aliens tell us what we can and cannot study." She put on her safety glasses and started setting up her equipment. "Let's see what makes this metal so special." Taewon, the station's best systems analyst, joined them in the lab. He was a quiet man who was better with computers than with people. His job was to monitor all the electronic systems and make sure nothing went wrong during experiments. "I've been reading the reports from your ship," Taewon said to Do-Hyun. "The energy signatures from this metal don't match anything in our databases." "That's what makes it interesting," Heejin replied, starting her first scan. The results appeared on her computer screen, and all three humans stared in silence. The metal's atomic structure was unlike anything they had ever seen. It contained elements that should not exist according to human science. "This is impossible," Heejin whispered. "Some of these atoms have electron shells that shouldn't be stable. But here they are, perfectly stable." Do-Hyun leaned closer to look. "What does that mean?" "It means whoever made this metal knew secrets about physics that we haven't discovered yet," Heejin said. "Maybe secrets we'll never discover." Taewon was running his own tests on his computer. "The metal is definitely responding to electromagnetic fields," he reported. "But not in any way that makes sense. It's like it's thinking about how to respond." "Thinking?" Do-Hyun asked. "You mean it's alive?" "Not alive exactly," Taewon said slowly. "But not dead either. It's something in between." Heejin decided to try a different kind of test. She placed electrodes on the metal sample and sent small electrical pulses through it. The metal began to change color, shifting from dark gray to silver to blue. "It's reacting to the electricity," she said excitedly. "But look at this pattern." On her screen, waves of energy were moving through the metal. The waves looked almost like brain waves, the electrical patterns that human brains made when people were thinking. "That's weird," Do-Hyun said. "It's almost like the metal is trying to communicate." Taewon was studying the wave patterns on his own computer. "I'm seeing something else," he said. "The metal seems to be scanning us. Every time one of us moves or speaks, the energy patterns change." "Scanning us how?" Heejin asked. "I don't know," Taewon admitted. "But it's definitely paying attention to us." They worked for hours, running test after test. The metal continued to surprise them with each experiment. When they heated it, it stayed cool. When they tried to cool it, it stayed warm. When they hit it with a hammer, it absorbed the impact without getting damaged. It's like the metal is learning from each test, Heejin said. Each time we try something new, it gets better at handling that kind of stress. Late that night, when Heejin was working alone in the lab, something amazing happened. She was feeling frustrated because none of her tests were giving her clear answers. She put her hands on the metal sample and closed her eyes, trying to think of a new approach. Suddenly, the metal began to glow softly under her hands. The glow was warm and friendly, not dangerous or threatening. Heejin opened her eyes and gasped. The metal was changing shape, slowly, very slowly. It was forming itself into a perfect sphere. As she watched, patterns appeared on the surface, like writing in a language she had never seen before. "Tae-won!" she called out. "Get in here right now!" Tae-won rushed into the lab and stopped when he saw the glowing sphere. "What did you do?" he asked. "I just touched it," Heejin said, "and thought about wanting to understand it." "You thought about understanding it?" "Yes. I was frustrated, and I was thinking about how much I wanted to know what this metal really was. And then it started changing." Tae-won set up his instruments to record what was happening. "The electromagnetic patterns are completely different now," he reported. "It's like the metal is in a completely different mode." Heejin kept her hands on the metal sphere. She could feel something, like a gentle vibration that went through her hands and up her arms. It was almost like the metal was trying to tell her something. "I think it wants to show us something," she said softly. "Show us what?" "I don't know. But I feel like it's trying to teach us." The next morning, Do-yun arrived at the lab to find Heejin and Tae-won still working. They had been there all night and they looked tired but excited. "You have to see this," Heejin said, leading him to the examination table. The metal sample had completely changed. Instead of the twisted piece of scrap they had brought from space, there was now a perfect crystal structure that seemed to pulse with internal light. "How did you do this?" Do-hyun asked. "We didn't do anything," Tae-won explained. "The metal did, it itself. All we did was touch it and think about wanting to understand it." "Think about understanding it?" "It sounds crazy," Heejin admitted. "But this metal responds to human thoughts. Not just any thoughts, but specific kinds of thoughts. Creative thoughts. Problem-solving thoughts." Do-yun stared at the transformed metal. "You're telling me this metal can read our minds?" "Not exactly," Tae-won said. "It's more like it can sense what kind of thinking we're doing. When Heejin was trying to solve the puzzle of what the metal was, it responded to that creative thinking process." "We tested it," Heejin added. "When I think about math problems or simple facts, nothing happens. But when I think about creating something new or solving a complex problem, the metal reacts." Do-hyun reached out to touch the crystal structure. As soon as his fingers made contact, he felt the same vibration that Heejin had described. But for him, it felt different. It felt like the metal was excited to meet him, like it had been waiting for him specifically. "This is incredible," he whispered. "But why does it only respond to humans? The Velthans and Crixians are both more advanced than us. Maybe that's exactly the problem, Heejin suggested. Maybe they're too advanced, too logical, too rigid in their thinking. Taewon nodded. Human thinking is messy and chaotic. We use emotion and intuition along with logic. Maybe that's what this metal needs. But what is it exactly? Do-hyun asked. What was this metal designed to do? The crystal pulsed brighter as if it had heard his question. Patterns of light began moving through its structure, creating a display that was beautiful and hypnotic. Think, Heejin said slowly. It's trying to show us, but we need to learn its language first. Then let's learn, Do-hyun said. I have a feeling this metal is going to change everything. None of them knew how right he was. In the days to come, their discovery would shake the foundations of human science and terrify the alien races who thought they understood the limits of what humans could achieve. The metal wasn't just responding to human creativity. It was being awakened by it, and once fully awake, it would become something that no one in the galaxy was prepared for. 2 months after the discovery, the research had moved to Luna Base, a secure testing facility on the far side of Earth's moon. The original metal sample had grown, not physically bigger, but somehow more present, more alive. Dr. Yoonji, the station's expert on ancient alien cultures, had joined the team to help understand what they were dealing with. This is not just technology, Dr. Yoonji said, studying the latest test results. This is art. Science and art combined into something that our ancestors could never imagine. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes who had spent 30 years studying dead alien civilizations. But this was the first time she had found alien technology that was still active, still learning. The patterns in the metal, she continued, pointing at the holographic display. They remind me of something. Cave paintings, maybe, or ancient human symbols. Like the metal is trying to tell us a story. Do-hyun had been working with the metal every day for weeks. Each time he touched it, he felt more connected to something vast and ancient. The metal had changed him, too. He could feel its presence even when he was not in the lab, like a quiet voice in the back of his mind. I think it wants to show us what it used to be, he said. Every time I connect with it, I get images, flashes of something incredible. What kind of images? Dr. Yoonji asked. Ships, Do-hyun replied. Beautiful ships flying through space, but not like our ships or any alien ships I've ever seen. These ships seemed alive, like they were dancing through the stars. Taewon had built a new interface system that allowed humans to connect more safely with the metal. It looked like a helmet with wires and small computers attached. When someone wore it, they could think directly to the metal and receive thoughts back. The neural patterns are stable, he reported, checking his instruments. But Do-hyun, are you sure you want to try this? We don't know what a full connection might do to your brain. I'm sure, Do-hyun said, putting on the interface helmet. This metal has been waiting for thousands of years for someone to understand it. I'm not going to let it wait any longer. Dr. Min-hee, the team's medical officer, stood ready with emergency equipment. She was worried about what the alien technology might do to a human mind. But she also understood that this was too important to stop. All life signs are normal, she reported, But Do-yun, if you feel anything strange, anything at all, tell us immediately. Do-yun nodded and closed his eyes. Taewon activated the interface, and suddenly Do-yun's mind was filled with alien thoughts and memories. He saw a race of beings that looked almost like humans, but taller and more graceful. They had created technology that responded to emotion and imagination rather than just logic and mathematics. Their ships were grown rather than built, shaped by the dreams and hopes of their creators. "I can see them," Do-yun whispered, his eyes still closed. "The beings who made this metal. They were artists and engineers and dreamers all at the same time." The images in his mind became clearer. He saw vast cities that floated in space, held together not by metal and concrete, but by the shared will of their inhabitants. He saw ships that could change shape as they flew, becoming whatever their pilots needed them to be. "They were like us," he said, wonder in his voice. "They used their hearts as much as their minds. But something happened to them. Something terrible." Ryan, his vision, Do-yun saw the end of the ancient race. They had become too logical, too focused on efficiency and order. They had forgotten how to dream, how to imagine new possibilities. Their technology had stopped responding to them, and slowly their civilization had died. "They saw it coming," Do-hyun said, his voice becoming urgent. "They knew they were losing their ability to create, so they built this metal, programmed it, to wait for a race that still knew how to dream." "Wait for what race?" Dr. Yoonji asked. "For us," Do-yun said. "For humans. They somehow knew that someday a young race would find their technology, a race that still used imagination and emotion to solve problems." The metal began to glow brighter. Around the lab, other pieces of the alien technology that they had collected started to vibrate and hum. Something was happening, something big. "Do-hyun," Taewon said, watching his instruments with growing alarm. "The energy readings are going crazy. The metal is drawing power from somewhere." "I can feel it," Do-hyun said. "It wants to show us what it can become. But it needs more than just me. It needs all of us working together." "What do you mean?" Dr. Min-hee asked. "The ancient race worked together to create their technology. One person alone isn't enough. We need to combine our thoughts, our creativity." Dr. Yoonji stepped forward. "I'll help. I want to see what these ancient artists created." Taewon hesitated, then nodded. "Me too. But we need to be careful." Dr. Min-hee attached interface devices to all 3 volunteers. The equipment was experimental and potentially dangerous, but the opportunity was too important to miss. "Everyone ready?" Taewon asked. "Remember, if anything feels wrong, disconnect immediately." They activated the interfaces together. Suddenly, all 3 minds were connected to the alien metal, and through it, to each other. Do-yun's engineering knowledge combined with Dr. Yoonji's understanding of ancient cultures and Taewon's technical skills. The metal responded like it had been struck by lightning. It began to change, flowing like liquid but staying solid at the same time. The small pieces they had collected from space started moving toward each other, drawn by invisible forces. "It's working," Dr. Yoonji said. her voice filled with amazement. "I can see the original design in my mind. It's beautiful." The metal pieces were joining together, forming something much larger than the sum of their parts. What had once been scrap was becoming a sleek, elegant structure that looked part spaceship and part living creature. "The transformation is accelerating," Taewon reported, though his voice sounded distant. "The metal is using our combined creativity as a blueprint." But the process was taking its toll on the humans. Do-Yun could feel his strength being drained as the metal drew on his imagination. Dr. Yunji was pale and shaking, and Taewon was struggling to maintain the connection. "Something's wrong," Dr. Minhee said, checking their vital signs. "Their brain activity is too high. They need to disconnect now." "Not yet," Do-Hyun said through gritted teeth. "It's almost finished. Just a little more." The metal structure was nearly complete now. It looked like a small spacecraft, but unlike any ship that humans or aliens had ever built. Its surface seemed to shift and flow, responding to the thoughts of its creators. "There," Dr. Yunji whispered. "It's done." They disconnected from the interface and collapsed into chairs, exhausted but exhilarated. Before them sat a perfect example of the ancient technology, rebuilt by human imagination and determination. "How do you feel?" Dr. Minhee asked, checking each of them with her medical scanner. "Tired," Do-Hyun admitted, "but also connected, like I'm part of something bigger now." "The metal," Taewon said slowly. "It's changed us somehow. I can still feel it, even without the interface." Dr. Yunji nodded. "It's not just technology. It's a bond. The ancient race didn't just build machines. They built relationships." News of the successful transformation spread quickly through the human government and military. Within hours, representatives from Earth's Defense Council were on their way to Luna Base. But the news also reached other ears. In the depths of space, Velthan and Crixian monitoring stations detected the energy surge from the transformation. Both alien races realized that the humans had succeeded in activating the ancient technology that they themselves had never been able to understand. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's most advanced civilizations felt something they had almost forgotten: fear. The young human race had just proven that they could do something that no one else could do. They had awakened technology that had been sleeping for thousands of years, and this was only the beginning. Hidden in asteroid fields and dead systems throughout the galaxy, more pieces of the ancient technology began to stir, responding to the signals sent out by the successful transformation on Luna Base. The humans had announced to the universe that they were ready to inherit the legacy of the Dreamers. The question now was whether the rest of the galaxy was ready for what humanity might become. The news reached New Geneva Station 3 days after the successful transformation on Luna Base. Sunho, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, was drinking his morning coffee when the encrypted message arrived. As he read the report, his coffee grew cold and his hands began to shake. The humans had not just activated ancient alien technology, they had rebuilt it from scrap metal, using nothing but their imagination and teamwork. The implications were staggering. Sunho was a careful man who had spent 10 years learning how to work with alien governments. He understood that the galaxy operated on a delicate balance of power, and humanity was still considered the youngest and weakest member of the galactic community. "This changes everything," he muttered to himself, reading the technical reports. Again. Within an hour of receiving the news, Sunho found himself facing an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The chamber was a massive dome where representatives from dozens of alien races gathered to discuss trade, disputes, and threats to galactic peace. Today, the chamber was full of worried aliens. Velnara, the Valthan trade minister, stood at the center of the speaking platform. Her silver robes seemed to glow under the chamber's lights, and her voice carried the authority of a race that had ruled star systems when humans were still living in caves. "Fellow council members," she began, her voice echoing through the dome, "we face an unprecedented situation. The human race has somehow activated technology that belongs to the Forbidden Archive." Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber. The Forbidden Archive was a collection of ancient technologies that the galactic community had agreed should never be studied or used. They were considered too dangerous for any modern civilization. "With respect," Sunho said, standing up from his seat. "The technology was found as scrap metal in an abandoned system. There were no markers indicating it was part of any forbidden collection." Velnara turned her cold gaze toward him. "The humans claim they found it by accident, but our intelligence suggests otherwise. How does a primitive race accidentally activate technology that our greatest scientists cannot understand?" Zikthara, the Crixian hive speaker, clicked her mandibles in agreement. "The hive mind concurs with Vilthan friend. Human species shows capability growth too rapid for natural development. This suggests outside assistance help or hidden knowledge secrets." Sunho felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "Are you accusing humanity of receiving illegal technology transfers? Because I can assure you that our research was conducted independently." "Independent research," Velnara said with a cold smile, "does not explain how humans succeeded where Vielthans and Crixians have failed for centuries. The truth was more complex than either alien race wanted to admit. For hundreds of years, both the Vielthans and Crixians had tried to activate ancient technologies found throughout the galaxy. Their efforts had always failed because their thinking was too rigid, too logical, but they could not admit this weakness to the Galactic Council. Instead, they chose to paint humanity as a threat that needed to be contained. "The technology must be surrendered to joint custody," Velnara declared. "No single race should possess such power, or it should be destroyed," Zikthara added. "Ancient powers brought chaos destruction to previous civilizations. History knowledge shows this truth fact." Sunho stood again, knowing that this moment would define humanity's future in the galaxy. The technology was legally salvaged by human crews in uncontested space. Earth will not surrender our discoveries to alien oversight. The chamber erupted in heated discussions. Some alien representatives supported the human position, but the most powerful voices called for immediate action to contain the human threat. Meanwhile, millions of kilometers away, Do-hyun was discovering that the transformation on Luna Base had been just the beginning. The successful activation had sent some kind of signal through space, and other pieces of ancient technology were responding. The energy readings are incredible, Taewon reported, studying data from deep space monitoring stations. There are responses coming from at least 12 different star systems. Responses? Dr. Yoonji asked. Other pieces of the ancient technology are waking up, Do-hyun explained. It's like they were all connected somehow, waiting for one piece to be successfully activated. Dr. Min-hee looked worried. What does that mean for us? It means, said a new voice from the laboratory entrance, that humanity is about to become the most important race in the galaxy. They turned to see Admiral Wanshek, commander of Earth's defense fleet. He was a tall man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Behind him stood two people that Do-hyun had never met. This is Kyung-jae, our best combat engineer, the Admiral said, indicating a young woman with short black hair and confident eyes. And this is So-min, our strategic analyst. Kyung-jae stepped forward and studied the transformed technology with professional interest. So this is what has the aliens so scared, she said. It doesn't look that threatening. The threat isn't what it looks like, So-min said quietly. The threat is what it represents. If humans can activate this technology, what else might we be able to do? Admiral Wanshik nodded grimly. Our intelligence sources report that both Velthan and Crixian fleets are mobilizing. They claim it's for joint research cooperation, but our analysts believe they're preparing for military action. Military action? Dr. Yoonji asked. Against Earth? Not directly, So-min replied. They're too smart for that. Instead, they'll try to blockade human space and force us to surrender the technology through economic pressure. Do-hyun felt a surge of anger. They want to steal our discovery because they're jealous that we succeeded where they failed. It's more complicated than jealousy, Admiral Wanshik said. This technology represents a fundamental shift in galactic power. For centuries, the Vaelthans and Crixians have been the dominant races because they had the most advanced technology. If humans can activate ancient tech that they cannot, it threatens their entire position. Kyung-jae was examining the transformed device more closely. How much more of this ancient technology is out there? She asked. Based on the energy responses we're detecting, Taewon said, there could be hundreds of pieces scattered throughout the galaxy, maybe thousands. And only humans can activate it? As far as we know, Dr. Yoonji confirmed. The ancient race that built this technology thought in ways that are similar to how humans think, creative, emotional, intuitive. So-min was taking notes on her data pad. If that's true, then humanity has just become the most valuable race in the galaxy, and the most dangerous. Dangerous to whom? Do-hyun asked. To anyone who has built their power on controlling advanced technology, Admiral Wanshik replied, which includes most of the galactic government. The Admiral walked over to a secure communication terminal and activated it. I need to speak with Earth Command immediately, he said. We need to accelerate the research program and prepare defensive measures. Defensive measures? Dr. Min-hee asked. The aliens won't attack us directly, So-min explained. But they might try to take the technology by force or prevent us from finding more pieces. Kyungjai was still studying the ancient device. How long would it take to find and activate more pieces of this technology? She asked. Months, Do-Hyun said. Maybe years. The process is exhausting, and we're still learning how it works. Then we need to buy time, Admiral Wanshik said. Time for the research team to find more technology and time for our diplomats to negotiate a peaceful solution. What if the aliens don't want a peaceful solution? Dr. Yunji asked. The Admiral's expression grew dark. Then humanity will have to prove that we're not as weak as they think we are. Back on New Geneva Station, Sunho was fighting a losing battle against alien politicians who had already decided that humanity was too dangerous to be left alone. The Galactic Council was preparing to authorize military intervention to seize the ancient technology. But they had made one crucial mistake. They assumed that humans would react to threats the same way other species did, with fear and submission. They were about to learn that humans had a very different response to being threatened. Instead of becoming afraid, humans became creative. And creativity was exactly what the ancient technology needed to become something that no one in the galaxy was prepared to face. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine whether humanity would remain junior members of galactic civilization or become something entirely new and unprecedented. The ancient technology was waiting to find out which path the humans would choose. Deep in the asteroid belt, hidden among millions of floating rocks, the humans had built a secret facility. It was called Research Station Alpha, but everyone who worked there simply called it the workshop. The station was invisible to most scanning systems, disguised to look like just another piece of space debris. Admiral Wanshik had ordered the facility built 3 weeks ago when it became clear that the alien races would not let humanity keep the ancient technology peacefully. If the aliens wanted to play games of power and intimidation, then humanity would play too. But humans would play by their own rules. Do-Hyun stood in the main laboratory of the workshop, looking at the biggest project he had ever attempted. The entire debris field from the original discovery had been secretly transported here piece by piece. Now it filled a space the size of a football stadium, thousands of chunks of ancient metal waiting to be transformed. This is insane, said Ji-young, the former Starship pilot who had volunteered for the project. She was a small woman with quick reflexes and an amazing ability to think in 3 dimensions. You want to transform all of this at once? Not all at once, Do-Hyun replied, but as one connected system. The ancient race didn't build individual ships. They built fleets that worked together like a single organism. Seok-woo, a former Marine, who had joined the research team, was checking the security systems around the laboratory. He was a big man with calm eyes who understood that their work here could change the course of human history. The perimeter is secure, he reported. But Admiral Wanshik says we only have a few more days before the alien fleets arrive in human space. Dr. Min-hee was setting up medical monitoring equipment for what would be the most dangerous experiment humanity had ever attempted. 23 humans would link their minds together to transform the entire debris field into something new. I've calculated the risks, she said. though her voice showed how worried she was. This much mental activity could cause permanent brain damage, or worse. The risks are acceptable, Do-hyun said firmly. If we don't do this, humanity becomes a junior partner in an alien-controlled galaxy forever. Heejin was calibrating the interface equipment that would connect all the human minds to the ancient technology. Each person would wear a neural headset that linked them not just to the metal, but to each other. The synchronization patterns look good, she reported. But Do-hyun, I have to ask, are you sure the metal wants to become what you're planning? I'm sure, Do-hyun replied. Every time I connect with it, I see the same vision. The ancient race built this technology to be inherited by someone who would use it better than they did. Taewon was monitoring communications from across the galaxy. The energy signatures are building, he said. More pieces of ancient technology are activating in response to our experiments. Whatever we're about to do, it's going to send a signal that everyone will notice. The 23 volunteers gathered in the center of the laboratory. They came from all walks of human life, engineers and artists, soldiers and teachers, doctors and farmers. The only thing they shared was a willingness to risk everything for humanity's future. Everyone understands the risks? Do-hyun asked. They all nodded. Ji-young adjusted her neural headset and grinned. I've flown through asteroid storms and survived 3 ship crashes. This can't be worse than that. Seok-woo checked his equipment one more time. I fought aliens in ground combat. At least this time we're trying to build something instead of destroy it. Dr. Min-hee took her position at the medical monitoring station. All life signs are stable, but remember, if anyone feels overwhelmed, disconnect immediately. We're ready, Do-hyun announced. Heejin activated the neural interface system. Suddenly, 23 human minds were connected to each other and to thousands of pieces of ancient alien technology. The experience was overwhelming and beautiful at the same time. Do-hyun could feel the thoughts and emotions of every person in the group. Ji-young's spatial awareness blended with Seok-woo's tactical thinking. The creativity of the artists merged with the logic of the engineers. Individual human minds became part of something much larger and more powerful. The ancient metal responded like it had been waiting for this moment for thousands of years. Every piece began to move, flowing through space like liquid mercury. The transformation was visible from the observation deck, where Dr. Min-hee watched with amazement and growing concern. The energy output is incredible, Taewon reported, his voice tight with concentration as he maintained his part of the mental link. This is putting out more power than a small star. Through the neural connection, Do-hyun could see what the metal was becoming. It was not a single ship or even a fleet of ships. It was something entirely new, something that had never existed in the galaxy before. The ancient race had built technology that could think and feel, but they had been limited by their own rigid minds, unable to imagine possibilities beyond their existing knowledge. Humans were different. Human imagination was wild and chaotic, capable of creating things that had never been dreamed of before. I can see it, Ji-young whispered through the neural link. It's beautiful. It's alive, Seok-woo added. Not just intelligent, actually alive. The metal was forming itself into a structure that was part spaceship, part living creature, part pure imagination made real. It had weapons that could defend itself, but also systems for exploration, for creation, for building new things that the galaxy had never seen. The transformation is accelerating, Heejin reported from her monitoring station. The metal is using our combined creativity as a blueprint, but it's also adding its own improvements. But the process was taking a terrible toll on the human volunteers. Several people had already collapsed, overwhelmed by the intensity of the mental connection. Dr. Minhee was moving between them, checking vital signs and administering emergency care. "We're losing people," she called out. "The neural load is too high." "Just a little longer," Do-hyun replied, though he could feel his own strength fading. "It's almost complete." Through the laboratory windows, they could see the transformation, reaching its climax. What had once been scattered debris was now a massive living ship that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. Its hull was smooth and organic-looking, but also clearly technological. "There," Do-hyun said, and the neural connection ended. 23 humans collapsed in exhaustion, but they were all still alive. Dr. Minhee rushed between them, checking for injuries and providing medical care. Most were unconscious but stable. "How do you feel?" she asked Do-hyun, who was struggling to sit up. "Different," he replied honestly. "Like I'm connected to something much bigger than myself." Through the laboratory windows, they could see their creation floating in space. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, clearly more advanced than anything humans or aliens had ever built. "What do we call it?" Ji-young asked weakly. "The indomitable will," Do-hyun said without hesitation. "That's what it told me its name should be." Taewon was monitoring communications from across the galaxy. "The energy pulse from the transformation has been detected by every major civilization," he reported. "And something else. Dozens of other pieces of ancient technology have activated in response." "What does that mean?" Seok-woo asked. "It means," Admiral Wonshik said as he entered the laboratory, "that we just announced to the galaxy that humanity is no longer the weak species that everyone thought we were." Through the communication system, alerts were coming in from across human space. Alien fleets were moving toward Earth, no longer pretending that this was about research cooperation. "They're coming," the Admiral said grimly. "Both Valthon and Crixian battle fleets, plus ships from half a dozen other species." "How long do we have?" Do-hyun asked. 2 days, maybe 3. Do-hyun looked through the window at the indomitable will, their impossible creation that existed because humans had dared to dream bigger than anyone thought possible. "Then we better see what our new ship can do," he said. The alien fleets arrived at the edge of the solar system like a storm cloud gathering on the horizon. 37 ships from 5 different species, led by the massive Velthan dreadnought Eternal Judgment and the Crixian hive ship 1000, Claws. They had come expecting to find a primitive human defense, force, and some pieces of ancient scrap metal. What they found instead changed everything they thought they knew about the universe. Captain Jisoo stood on the bridge of the indomitable will, though bridge was not really the right word for it. The control center of the ship was more like a living organism than a mechanical device. Walls pulsed gently with bioluminescent patterns, and control surfaces grew from the floor when they were needed, then melted back when they were not. "Incoming transmission from the alien fleet," reported Taiwan, whose consciousness was now partially merged with the ship's communication systems. The main view screen formed itself from the air in front of them, showing the cold face of Velthan Fleet Commander Kethrall. His silver skin gleamed under the lights of his command ship, and his eyes held the arrogance of a species that had ruled the galaxy for centuries. "Human vessel," Kethrall said in his musical but threatening voice, "you are in possession of technology that belongs to the galactic community. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded." Captain Jisoo smiled calmly. "Fleet Commander, this is Captain Jisoo of the human vessel Indomitable Will. The technology you refer to was legally salvaged from abandoned space. We have no intention of surrendering anything." Kethrall's expression darkened. "You do not understand. The forces you are dealing with human. That technology is beyond your primitive comprehension." "Is it?" Jisoo asked mildly. "Because from where I'm standing, it seems to be working just fine." On another part of the ship, Do-hyun was connecting, his consciousness directly to the vessel's core systems. The process no longer required external equipment. The transformation had changed him, made him part of the ship's living neural network. As his mind merged with the indomitable will, he could feel its vast intelligence awakening. The ship was not just a machine that humans had built. It was a partnership between human creativity and ancient alien wisdom, something entirely new in the galaxy. "How many ships are we facing?" he asked, though he could already sense the answer through the ship's sensors. 37 combat vessels," replied Kyung-jae, who was managing the ship's defensive systems, "including 2 Dreadnought-class ships and 1 hive ship. Under normal circumstances, they could destroy an entire human fleet." "Good thing these aren't normal circumstances," Seok-woo said, from his position at Tactical Systems. Through the neural link, Do-hyun could feel the confidence and determination of his crewmates. Ji-young was already thinking three-dimensionally, planning flight patterns that would be impossible for conventional ships. Heejin was monitoring the ship's adaptive hull, ready to modify its structure as needed. The alien fleet was moving into attack formation, their ships spreading out to surround the indomitable will. But they were moving slowly, cautiously, trying to understand what they were facing. "They've never seen anything like us," Somin observed from her position analyzing enemy tactics. "Their formations are designed to fight conventional ships with predictable capabilities." Crixian War Prime Vexcon appeared on the communication screen alongside Kethrall. The insectoid alien's mandibles clicked with agitation as she spoke. "Human creatures," she said in her clicking voice. "The hive mind offers final warning chance. Surrender ancient technology or face destruction consequence." "I'm afraid that's not going to happen," Captain Jisoo replied calmly. "Then you have chosen death path," Vexcon declared. The communication ended, and immediately the alien ships opened fire. Energy beams and missile weapons that could destroy planets converged on the indomitable will from dozens of directions simultaneously. The crew braced for impact, but nothing happened. The weapons passed through the ship's hull as if it wasn't. there. Not because the ship had shields, but because the ship had shifted its molecular structure to exist in a slightly different phase of reality. The energy beam struck empty space where the ship had been a microsecond before. "Impossible," whispered Kethrall, staring at his weapons display in disbelief. "How?" asked Vex Khan, her compound eyes wide with shock. On the indomitable will, Do-Yun was experiencing something that no human had ever felt before. Through his connection to the ship, he could perceive multiple dimensions of space and time simultaneously. The ship could move not just through three-dimensional space, but through quantum layers of reality that normal matter couldn't access. The ancient race didn't just build technology, he explained to his crewmates through the neural link. They built technology that could rewrite the laws of physics. And now we control it, Ji-Young added with excitement as she guided the ship through impossible maneuvers. The indomitable will began to move in ways that violated everything the aliens thought they knew about space travel. It twisted through dimensions, appearing inside the alien formation and then vanishing before they could react. "Status report," Captain Jisoo called out. "All systems operating perfectly," Kyung-jae reported. "The ship is adapting to every attack. They try." "Their weapons can't touch us," Seok-woo confirmed. "But we haven't used any weapons of our own yet." "We won't," Jisoo said firmly. "Our goal is to defend ourselves, not to start a war." But the indomitable will had other ideas. The ship's artificial intelligence, guided by human creativity but enhanced by ancient wisdom, began to demonstrate capabilities that even its human crew didn't fully understand. The ship started to replicate itself, not making copies but dividing its mass and consciousness into multiple smaller vessels, each one piloted by a fragment of human imagination. Within minutes, the alien fleet found themselves facing not one impossible ship, but dozens. "This is beyond anything we anticipated," Kethrall said to his officers, his voice showing fear for the first time in centuries. "The hive mind calculates victory probability at 0%, Vex Khan reported, her clicking voice filled with panic. The smaller ships created by the indomitable will began to demonstrate their own impossible abilities. They phased through the hulls of alien vessels not to attack, but to disable weapon systems from the inside. Crews found their ship's guns simply stopping working, with no explanation for how or why. "They're inside our ships," one alien captain reported, "but our hull integrity is still perfect. They passed through solid matter." Dr. Yoonji, monitoring the engagement from the indomitable will's science station, was recording everything for future study. "The ship is using quantum tunneling on a macro scale," she explained. "It's passing through matter by existing in multiple probability states simultaneously." "In simple terms," Captain Jisoo asked. "In simple terms, we're doing things that should be impossible." The demonstration continued for 20 minutes. The alien fleet fired every weapon they had, tried every tactical maneuver in their databases, and called for reinforcements from across the galaxy. Nothing worked. The human ship and its offspring moved through their attacks like ghosts, disabling their weapons without harming their crews. Finally, Kethrall opened communications again. His proud face now showed something that Vailthans rarely experienced. Humility. "Human vessel," he said slowly. "We request parley." "I thought you might," Captain Jisoo replied. "But first I want you to understand something. This technology doesn't belong to any galactic community. It belongs to whoever can use it to build instead of destroy, to create instead of control." "What are you saying?" Vexcon asked. "I'm saying that the age of galactic politics as usual is over," Jisoo declared. "Humanity has proven that there are new ways to think about technology, about cooperation, about what's possible." Through the neural link, Do-hyun could feel the ship's satisfaction. It had been waiting for thousands of years for a species that would use its power not for conquest, but for creation. Humanity had passed the test. "Prepare a message for the Galactic Council," Captain Jisoo ordered. "Tell them that humanity is ready to discuss a new kind of relationship, one based on partnership instead of domination." The alien fleets began to withdraw, their crews struggling to understand what they had witnessed. For the first time in galactic history, a younger species had demonstrated capabilities that the established powers couldn't match or understand. But this was only the beginning. Across the galaxy, more pieces of ancient technology were awakening, responding to the signal sent out by the Indomitable Will's demonstration. And they were all waiting for humans to find them. What happened next wasn't a battle. It was an education. The alien fleets that had come to take the ancient technology by force found themselves facing something that challenged everything they believed about warfare, about physics, and about what was possible in the universe. Admiral Wanshik watched from the human command ship Soul's Pride, positioned safely behind Jupiter's massive bulk. Through quantum communication links, he could see everything that was happening near Earth. What he saw made him feel proud and terrified at the same time. "The Indomitable Will is not fighting them," he reported to Earth Command. "It's teaching them." The lesson began simply enough. When the Vailthan Dreadnought Eternal Judgment fired its main weapons, the Indomitable Will did not dodge or use shields. Instead, it absorbed the energy and transformed it into something beautiful. The deadly plasma beams became streams of light that painted pictures in space, showing the Vailthans their own history and culture reflected back at them in pure energy. "Impossible," whispered Kethral, staring at the display. "Those are images from our homeworld. How does the human ship know our history?" On the Indomitable Will, Dr. Yunji was monitoring the ship's data systems. "The ancient technology has been observing galactic civilizations for thousands of years," she explained to her crewmates. "It knows the history of every species better than they know it themselves." Ji-young was piloting the ship through maneuvers that no conventional vessel could perform. The Indomitable Will flowed through space like liquid mercury, its hull changing shape to match whatever movement was needed. Sometimes it looked like a sleek arrow cutting through the void. Other times it spread out like a living net, surrounding multiple enemy ships at once. "The ship is teaching me as much as I'm controlling it," she said through the neural link. "It's showing me possibilities I never imagined." The Crixian hive ship Thousand Claws launched a swarm of attack drones. Thousands of small robotic fighters designed to overwhelm any target with sheer numbers. The indomitable will responded by creating its own swarm, but these were not weapons of destruction. The human ship's offspring were tiny vessels that looked more like butterflies than fighters. They danced through the Crixian drones, not destroying them, but gently touching each one. Every drone that was touched simply stopped working, not damaged, but somehow convinced that fighting was no longer necessary. "The drones are not responding," Vexcon clicked in confusion. "They are operational, but refuse to attack." "The human ships are communicating with our machines," one of her officers reported. "Somehow they are changing the basic programming of our weapons." Siak Wu was managing the ship's defensive systems, but he was discovering that defense and offense were the same thing when you could rewrite reality at the quantum level. When enemy missiles approached, the ship didn't destroy them. It convinced them to transform into harmless light shows that illuminated the space around the fleet. "This is beyond tactics," he said to his crewmates. "We're not fighting a war. We're having a conversation." The conversation became more complex as more alien ships joined the engagement. Vessels from 7 different species converged on the indomitable will, each bringing their most advanced weapons and their most experienced crews. None of it mattered. The human ship demonstrated abilities that transcended conventional physics. When a group of ships tried to surround it, the indomitable will simply existed in multiple locations simultaneously, confusing their targeting systems. When they fired energy weapons, the ship caught the energy and used it to power beautiful displays that showed each species their own potential for creation instead of destruction. "They're not trying to defeat us," realized Captain Morthan of the Zelkarian Confederacy. "They're showing us that defeat is impossible." Kyung-jae was coordinating the ship's adaptive systems, watching as the hull transformed itself in real time to meet each new challenge. "The aliens keep trying the same strategies over and over," she observed. "They can't adapt because they're thinking inside the boundaries of what they believe is possible." "That's the difference," Do-hyun said through the neural link. "Humans have always been good at thinking outside those boundaries. The ancient technology was amplifying that human trait, taking creative thinking and giving it the power to reshape reality. The result was a demonstration of capabilities that the galaxy had never seen before. But the most impressive part wasn't the ship's impossible physics or its reality-bending weapons. It was the restraint. Every action the indomitable will took was designed to protect and preserve rather than harm and destroy. When the alien ship's life support systems started failing under the stress of the engagement, the human ship quietly repaired them without being asked. When crew members were injured by the psychological shock of witnessing impossible events, the ship somehow healed their minds and gave them peace. "Why?" Kethrel demanded over the communication channel. "Why are you helping us when we came to destroy you?" Captain Jisu's voice was calm and patient. "Because that's what the technology is for. The ancient race that built it learned too late that power used for domination always destroys itself. This technology only responds to those who want to build, not tear down. But you could destroy our entire fleet." Vexcon pointed out. Why don't you? Because, Jisoo replied simply. We don't want to. Humans didn't activate this technology to become galactic conquerors. We activated it because we wanted to understand it, to learn from it, to see what new things we could create together. Salman was analyzing the psychological effects of the demonstration on the alien crews. Their entire worldview is collapsing, she reported. For centuries, they've believed that superior technology means the right to dominate others. We're showing them a completely different way to think about power. The demonstration reached its climax when the indomitable will did something that none of the aliens thought was possible. It began to teach. Using the same quantum communication methods that allowed it to pass through solid matter, the ship connected directly to the computer systems of every vessel in the alien fleet. But instead of taking control or causing damage, it shared knowledge. Every alien crew member suddenly understood exactly how the human ship worked. They could see the mathematical principles behind its impossible physics, the engineering concepts that allowed it to reshape matter, and the philosophical framework that guided its actions. This is beautiful, whispered a Valthan engineer, tears streaming down his face as he finally understood what he was seeing. The mathematics are perfect, added a Crixian scientist. But they require cooperation, not domination. The technology only works when different minds work together in harmony. Dr. Minhee was monitoring the psychological effects on the human crew. The demonstration is taking its toll on us too, she warned. Maintaining this level of quantum coherence is exhausting. We're almost done, Do-Yun assured her. The point has been made, and it had. Across the alien fleet, crews were laying down their weapons and staring in wonder at what they had witnessed. Some were crying, others were laughing with joy. All of them were changed. The indomitable will slowly returned to its original configuration, the smaller ships merging back into the main vessel like drops of water flowing together. The demonstration was over, but its effects would ripple through the galaxy for generations. Fleet Commander Kethral, Captain Jisoo said over the open communication channel, you came here to take our technology by force. Instead, you've learned that force is the one thing this technology will never serve. What happens now? Kethral asked, his voice small and humble. Now, Jisoo replied, we start building something new together. The alien fleets began to withdraw, but they were not retreating in defeat. They were returning home as ambassadors. For a new way of thinking about technology, about power, and about what civilizations could accomplish when they chose cooperation over conquest. The demonstration was over, but the real work was just beginning. 6 months after the demonstration that changed the galaxy, Sunho stood before the Galactic Council once again. But this time, the chamber looked very different. The rigid seating arrangements that had separated species for centuries had been replaced with circular discussion areas where beings from different worlds could sit together and share ideas. The change wasn't just physical. The entire atmosphere of galactic politics had transformed. Representatives of the Council, Sunho began, his voice carrying to every corner of the great chamber. We gather today not to discuss threats or territorial disputes, but to celebrate what we have learned together. In the 6 months since the II Indomitable Will's demonstration, something remarkable had happened across the galaxy. Species that had competed for centuries were now working together on projects that none of them could have imagined alone. Velnara, the former Valthan trade minister who had once demanded that humans surrender their technology, now sat beside Sunho as co-chair of the new Cooperative Research Council. Her silver robes had been replaced with simple work clothes, and her expression showed the excitement of someone who had discovered new possibilities. The ancient technology responds to more than just human creativity, she reported to the assembly. We have learned that when different species combine their unique ways of thinking, the results exceed what any single race could achieve. Zikthara, the Crixian representative, clicked her mandibles in agreement. The hive mind has discovered individual thinking for the first time in our history. Working with human friends and Velthan friends has taught us that diversity strength creates solutions that uniformity thinking cannot achieve. On Earth, Dr. Yunji was leading a research expedition to Mars, where another cache of ancient technology had been discovered buried beneath the planet's surface. But she wasn't working alone. Her team included scientists from 12 different species, each contributing their own perspective to understanding the mysterious artifacts. The technology isn't just responding to us, she explained to her mixed species team. It's teaching us about ourselves. Each piece we activate shows us something new about what we can become when we work together. The Martian's sight was revealing secrets that astounded even the most experienced researchers. The ancient race hadn't just built technology that could reshape matter and energy. They had built devices that could reshape consciousness itself, allowing different species to share thoughts and experiences directly. Heejin, now leading the technical development of human-alien collaboration tools, was demonstrating the latest breakthrough to a group of visiting dignitaries. A simple headset that allowed a human engineer to share problem-solving techniques directly with a Velthan mathematician and a Crixian systems analyst. The results are incredible, she said, showing holographic displays of their joint work. Problems that would take months for any single species to solve can be resolved in hours when we combine our different ways of thinking. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt, the workshop had been transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. The secret facility was now the center of the largest cooperative project ever attempted, involving thousands of beings from dozens of species. Do-hyun stood in the main laboratory, but he was no longer entirely human. His consciousness had merged so completely with the ancient technology that he existed as much in quantum space as in physical reality. Yet instead of making him alien, the transformation had made him more human than ever, embodying the creativity and adaptability that made his species special. The network is complete, he announced to the assembled teams. Around him, representatives from across the galaxy watched as he activated the final connections between pieces of ancient technology scattered throughout dozens of star systems. The result was breathtaking. For the first time in galactic history, every inhabited world was connected by a network that allowed instant communication and cooperation across impossible distances. But more than that, it allowed species to share their unique perspectives and abilities directly. Captain Jisoo, now serving as commander of the expanded Indomitable Will, was exploring the outer reaches of the galaxy with a crew that included beings from 23 different species. The ship itself had evolved far beyond its original design, becoming a living example of what was possible when different forms of intelligence worked together. "We found another one," Ji-Young reported from the pilot's position. "A whole planet covered with ancient technology, just waiting to be activated." "What kind of technology?" asked Seok-woo, whose tactical expertise had proven invaluable in exploring dangerous regions of space. "According to the scans," said Dr. Min-hee, who was now the galaxy's leading expert on the interaction between alien technology and biological systems, "it appears to be designed for terraforming, but not just changing planets to suit existing life forms, creating entirely new forms of life." The discoveries were accelerating. Every month brought new revelations about what the ancient race had built and why. They had foreseen their own decline and had scattered their technology throughout the galaxy like seeds, waiting for a civilization mature enough to use it wisely. Back on New Geneva Station, the Galactic Council was voting on the most important decision in their history. The question wasn't whether to allow humans to keep the ancient technology. It was whether to accept humanity's offer to share it with everyone. "The technology cannot be hoarded or controlled," Sunho explained to the assembled representatives. "It only works when used for cooperation and creation. Any attempt to use it for domination or conquest causes it to shut down completely." This had been proven repeatedly over the past months. Several species had tried to create weapons based on the ancient technology, only to find that their devices simply refused to function. The technology had built-in safeguards that prevented its misuse. Admiral Wanshik, now serving as head of the new multi-species defense cooperative, was addressing concerns about security in this new galaxy. "The ancient technology doesn't eliminate conflict," he explained, "but it makes traditional warfare obsolete. Disputes are now resolved through collaborative problem-solving rather than violence." The voting was unanimous. Every species in the galaxy chose to join the new cooperative framework, abandoning the old system of competitive dominance for a new model based on shared creativity and mutual benefit. Dr. Yunji made perhaps the most important discovery of all when she finally decoded the complete message left by the ancient race. The holographic recording showed a being that looked remarkably similar to humans, but with eyes that held the sadness of a civilization that had learned wisdom too late. "We created this technology in our final years," the ancient being said, "when we realized that our focus on logic and efficiency had cost us our ability to dream, to imagine, to create new possibilities. We became so advanced that we forgot how to grow. We scattered our technology across the galaxy with one hope, that someday a young race would find it, a race that still remembered how to wonder, how to work together, how to build something greater than the sum of its parts." If you are hearing this message, then that race has emerged. Use our technology not to repeat our mistakes, but to create the kind of galaxy we should have built. A galaxy where difference is celebrated, where cooperation triumphs over competition, where the power to reshape reality is used to make all life better. The message ended with a simple request. Remember us not for what we built, but for what we learned, and build something better. Standing in his laboratory on Mars, surrounded by colleagues from across the galaxy, Do-Hyun felt the presence of the ancient beings who had made this moment possible. They had given the galaxy more than advanced technology. They had given it a second chance to choose wisdom over power, cooperation over conquest. The scrap metal that humans had found floating in an abandoned system had become the foundation for a new kind of civilization. A civilization where the unique gifts of every species were valued, where problems were solved through creativity rather than force, where the most advanced technology in the galaxy responded only to the desire to build rather than destroy. Humanity had not just inherited the ancient technology. They had inherited the responsibility to use it wisely to ensure that the galaxy's future would be shaped by hope rather than fear, by cooperation rather than competition. The age of isolated species competing for resources and dominance was over. The age of collaborative exploration and shared growth had begun, and it all started with some scrap metal that nobody wanted, until humans decided to see what was possible. Admiral Kang Hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the massive viewing screen. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the gentle beeping of monitors. His officers moved around him with practiced efficiency, checking systems and running routine scans of the empty space around them. The Vielthian Empire's Third Fleet was powerful. 12 heavy cruisers floated in perfect formation around the flagship Eternal Dominion. Each ship was over 800 meters long, covered in gleaming white armor that reflected the light of distant stars. Blue energy fields shimmered around each vessel, creating protective barriers that could stop any weapon the Empire had ever faced. Kang Hyun felt proud as he looked at his fleet. For 2 centuries, no enemy had broken through Velthian plasma shields. Their energy weapons could melt through the strongest metals in seconds. The Empire had conquered 17 star systems using this technology, and each victory had been swift and decisive. Commander Park Ji-won walked up to the Admiral, carrying a data tablet. She was young for her rank, but Kang Hyun trusted her completely. Her dark hair was pulled back in the standard military style, and her uniform was perfectly pressed. Like all Velthians, she had pale blue skin and large dark eyes that seemed to catch every detail. "Admiral, we have received the latest intelligence reports from High Command," Park Ji-won said, offering him the tablet. Kang Hyun took the device and scrolled through the information. Most of it was routine patrol data and supply schedules. But one section caught his attention. The report mentioned a new species that had been spotted in nearby sectors. They called themselves humans. "These humans," Kang Hyun said, pointing at the screen. "What do we know about them?" Park Ji-won pulled up additional files on her own tablet. "Very little, sir. Our scouts have only encountered a few of their ships. They appear to be primitive scavengers. Their vessels are crude and angular, made from simple metals. No energy shields detected. No plasma weapons. They seem to flee whenever our ships appear." Kang Hyun nodded slowly. It was the same story the Empire had heard many times before. A new species would appear, make some noise, and then quickly learn to stay out of Velthian space. Most alien races were smart enough to avoid conflict once they saw the Empire's superior technology. "Any signs of aggression?" he asked. "None, sir. They appear to be focused on mining operations and trade routes. Our analysts believe they pose no threat to Imperial interests." The Admiral handed the tablet back to his commander. The humans sounded like every other weak species the Empire had encountered. They would probably submit quickly once they understood the power they were dealing with. Some might even become useful as workers or tribute providers. 3 decks below, Fleet Marshal Choi Daeho was meeting with the ship's senior officers in the main conference room. The room was circular, with a large holographic display in the center showing star charts and tactical information. Officers sat around the curved table, their blue faces illuminated by the soft glow of the hologram. Choi Daeho was older than most of the others, with silver hair and scars on his hands from battles fought decades ago. He had personally led the conquest of 6 star systems and was considered one of the Empire's greatest military minds. When he spoke, everyone listened. "The High Council has decided to establish a forward base in the Andros system," he announced, pointing to a red dot on the star chart. "This will serve as a staging area for future expansion into the Outer Rim territories." One of the younger officers, Lieutenant Commander Shin Dongwoo, raised his hand. "Marshal, what about the human presence in that region? Should we be concerned?" "About potential interference?" Choi Daeho smiled, showing sharp white teeth. "The humans are not a concern. Our intelligence suggests they are a primitive species with no significant military capability. If they become a problem, we will deal with them as we have dealt with all others who stood in our way." The other officers nodded in agreement. They had all heard stories of the Empire's past victories. The Zephyrian Confederacy had fallen in 3 days. The Molten Worlds Republic had surrendered after a single demonstration of Imperial firepower. The pattern was always the same: shock, resistance, and then quick submission. Far away from the Velthian fleet, in a different part of space, Captain Lee Minho sat in his quarters aboard the human warship Indomitable. Unlike the clean, bright bridges of Velthian ships, his cabin was cramped and functional. Steel walls were covered with monitors, star charts, and technical readouts. Everything was built for efficiency rather than comfort. Lee Minho was reviewing the latest reports from Earth Command when his communication system chimed. He touched a button, and a holographic message appeared above his desk. The sender was Admiral Chen Wei, commander of Earth's Deep Space Defense Force. "Captain Lee," the hologram said. "We have received disturbing intelligence about alien fleet movements in the Andros system. A large formation of unknown vessels has been spotted near the outer planets. They appear to be establishing some kind of base or staging area." Lee Minho leaned forward, studying the data that accompanied the message. The alien ships were massive, much larger than anything humanity had built. Their energy signatures were unlike anything in Earth's databases. Most concerning was their formation pattern, which suggested military organization rather than peaceful exploration. "Your orders are to proceed to the Andros system and observe," the Admiral continued. Do not engage unless directly threatened. We need to understand what we are dealing with before taking any action. Earth Command is sending additional ships to support you, but they will not arrive for several weeks." The message ended, leaving Lee Min-ho alone with his thoughts. He had been captain of the Indomitable for 3 years, and in that time he had never encountered a hostile alien species. Humanity's expansion into space had been mostly peaceful, with only minor conflicts over mining rights and trade routes. But something about this situation felt different. The size and organization of the alien fleet suggested a military force, not explorers or traders. Earth's long-range sensors had detected energy signatures that could only come from advanced weapons systems. Lee Min-ho stood up and walked to the small window in his quarters. Outside, he could see the hull of his ship stretching away into darkness. The Indomitable was not like the sleek vessels of other species. It was a kilometer long and built like a fortress, with thick armor plating and angular surfaces designed to deflect impacts. Humans had learned to build their ships tough because space was dangerous, filled with debris and radiation that could destroy a vessel in seconds. The ship's weapons were different too, while other species seemed to favor energy weapons and defensive. Shields, human engineers had focused on kinetic systems. Magnetic accelerators could fire metal projectiles at incredible speeds, and the ship's armor was designed to absorb impacts rather than deflect energy beams. Lee Min-ho made his decision. He would take the Indomitable to the Andros system and see what these aliens wanted. If they were peaceful, perhaps humanity could establish diplomatic relations. If they were hostile, well, the aliens would learn that humans were not as weak as they might appear. He touched his communication panel and opened a channel to the bridge. "This is the captain. Set course for the Andros system, maximum speed, and prepare the crew for possible combat operations." The response came immediately. "Aye, sir. Course laid in. Estimated travel time, 16 hours. As the Indomitable changed direction and accelerated toward its destination, neither the human captain nor the Vielthian admiral knew that their meeting would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever.